hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not point.
Muscletone has a long history, and it's not just me. I want everyone to know that we're a big group, and I always support my partners. And before we got to the franchise, before we got to Magoo, before we got to even Stella and Yoshi before that, and all of these dogs, there's a story. There's a beautiful story, and it leads to today and the Muscletone empire that we have. You know, the multi-million-dollar company that we have today started from nothing, and I want to tell this story. So today we're going to start with year 2000. So that was the year that I discovered the American Pit Bull Terrier, which was not an American bully yet at that time. So what had happened was this. I used to own a cell phone store at the time. Actually, in 2000 I was actually working with someone, and they kind of gave me a partnership. I borrowed some money from an uncle of mine, and I started, you know, my own cell phone business. And I was doing all right. It wasn't, you know, as good as the dogs, obviously, but I was doing pretty decent. It was a fair income where I was able to support myself and a family. At the time, I had a friend of mine, me and my younger brother's friend, who is from our country, and he had just moved also from Syria to Montreal into the United States, and he was living on his own. He was in first year of college, and you know, they went out one night, and they met some guy from the Middle East who was well off, descended from royalty, and so, you know, they kind of catered to him as, you know, being who he was and based on his status, and one thing led to another. This guy, this is the funny story, I won't name any names so that we don't start troubles here, had a problem with some girl, and that evening after they had came out from the nightclub, they went over to my buddy's house, and he was arguing with some girl on the phone, this and that. The night was late. I wasn't present that evening. My brother was, and he asked my brother if he can give him a ride to this girl's house to pick up some money she owed him. And my brother's like, yeah, no, I'm not driving all the way there for a few dollars to help you out. I'd rather just give them to you than that. He's like, no, it's the principal. I need to go get him, Mr. Principal. So long story short, my brother went home. My friend, who lived in that particular house, decided to give him a ride. He had taken a knife, the gentleman that was with him that evening, from my friend's house, and they head over there. Obviously, my friend didn't know anything about the knife. He thought he was just dropping him off to pick up some money. But when they got there was a bunch of guys waiting. So apparently he was fooling around with this girl. She was breaking up with him. She was seeing another guy. Some drama, crap. But it turned into a big fight. There were several guys against the two of them. My friend is a pretty big dude, and I guess the kid that brought the knife with him ended up getting stabbed with his own knife. Somehow, some way, another kid got cut, and they all end up in the hospital. Two or three of them. So my friend didn't get any injuries on him. He ran back home and, you know, threw his clothes in the wash because he had blood all over it. But before long, the cops showed up at his house. They found a matching set of knives in the kitchen, and they arrested him. The reason I'm telling this story is because he had a dog, and I really never had really played with a dog much. I was only seeing him in the house. So his mother flew from overseas back home to take care of the situation. And he was in jail under all kinds of stories. I mean, they called him the head of a Middle Eastern mafia. He was literally 19 years old. I mean, the most ridiculous news I've ever seen. That's the day I learned that the news is a bunch of crap. Because everything they wrote on the article, that came from police officers, by the way, that was their supposedly source, was all lies. It was completely made up. None of it made sense. None of it was real. And it wasn't even close to what had happened. But it took a year before he was released. And in that particular year, his mother asked me to watch his dog. So when you watch a dog for a year, taking him to work with you and taking him back and forth because no one else can watch him, you grow attached to the dog. So of course, he was found not guilty. He was released. He wanted his dog back. So I had to get one of my own dogs. So I started looking online for dogs. And, you know, Razor Edge at the time was a popular name. Gaudy was also decently popular. It was starting off. There was a lot of other pit bull lines like Gaff and Gray Line at the time, and many other things. There was called Muggletons, and so on and on and on. So I found a dog I liked, or a kennel I liked. To avoid any drama, I'm not going to mention it. So we flew over there, my friend and I, to go see the dogs. And when I got over there, it was a mess. These dogs were tied to barrels, and I mean barrels. Some of the old school people will know exactly who I'm talking about when I say this. But they were tied to barrels, and they were filthy, they were dirty, some were missing teeth, they had battle wounds on them as if they were fought, even though they were not fighting dogs, but they were just, so when you leave a bunch of dogs together and they get off lead, sometimes they get into it. I'm sure that's happened to almost all of us, right? At least once, where we had a small accidental dog fight in the yard, right? Because we weren't paying attention, maybe two females fighting over a bone, or, something like that. So, anyhow, I wasn't going to buy the dog from the guy. He looked like a complete crackhead. He was missing teeth. I just didn't feel comfortable giving him $6,000 for a dog, which everyone else was selling for $500 at the time. And he's like, no, I want $6,000 if you want the dad, because I wanted the sire. I didn't want the puppies. The puppies, they look like rats. And while I was there, a football player walked in. Forgive me, I don't remember who it was. I don't really watch the NFL. But my friend who was with me is a big NFL fan. He wanted to take pictures with him and everything. So this particular gentleman bought a couple dogs from this guy. And dumped quite a bit of cash. And I was like, whoa, well, maybe he's got something there. So you know what, I'll take the dog. I couldn't even get the dog back home. I didn't know how to do it. Went to a vet to get the dog checked. The vet offered to, give the dog his vaccinations, give him a bath, cleaning him up, doing his nails. I mean, he was really bad, brush his teeth. I mean, I spent probably about $1,500 at the vet that day just to get the dog ready for a health certificate so I can get him on a cargo plane and get back. So, long story short, we got the dog back home. The dog was, he told me he was 4, but when I got the paperwork, it was actually 6 years old. Again, I didn't even know how long the dog lived back then, so I was just happy with the dog. I was excited to have him. He was a beautiful dog for that time era. It was a brindle boy, which is odd because I can't stand the color brindle today. But at that particular time, I just wanted a cool dog, and I got what I wanted. Now the dog had no training whatsoever. He wasn't house trained. He wasn't lead trained. He was nothing. So, started taking him to a dog school in Michigan, which was the same school the friend of mine whose dog I watched attended to. That school, I'll actually give you guys the name. It's a wonderful school. I don't know if they're still open or not. It's called Sun Dog. If you go to sun_dog.com, you'll find our website. The owner is Jerry. He's an older gentleman from the military, trained military dogs. One of the best dog trainers of all time. Phenomenal guy. So he's up in Michigan, of course. So that's, for people who are out in that area listening right now, that's your dog. That's your guy if you want a dog trained properly. So at that particular time, I was really big into training. So I trained the dog in many ways. It was obedience trained, protection work, agility work, all kinds of stuff. One day I'm walking the dog, and gentleman literally almost crashes the car, does a U-turn, comes back, goes, "Oh my God, I love the dog, blah blah blah." Who's he off of? I had no idea. Guys, I had no idea who my dog was off of. I didn't even know what he was talking about when he asked me that question. What he said to me was, "I got a bitch, I want to breed it to your male." So, from a man's standpoint, I'm like, oh, my dog's going to get some. Why not? Bring her over, let the dog have some fun, right? That's how guys think, right? It's, let my boy get some. So, tells me when the dog comes in, he takes my number. A couple of months go by, I completely forgot about the dude. He calls me up, he goes, "Remember me?" Blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah. He's like, "Well, I got my bitches in heat, and I want to breed her." I said, I had no idea what heat meant. I said, "Oh, yeah, okay." He's like, "Well, I'm going to bring her by. You free this afternoon?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be home. On Sundays after a certain time, I'm home." So he came by that Sunday, and he said, actually, let's let him run, is what we did at first. And I think I watched these dogs, this is my first time watching this, over an hour trying to hump her. Finally, he got her, and they tied. Something that you don't see very often today. Everything's AI or transcervical or mostly surgical, really. But that particular time, the dogs did tie. I think Magoo was the last dog I had that tied one time out of all the breedings we've ever did. I think I still have a video of that. It actually happened at a vet clinic, but that's a story for another time. But long story, at that time he tied, and And that was it. And I saw it. When we were done, dude comes up to me and says, so how much? And my first initial thought was, this guy wants me to pay him for my dog banging his dog. See, that's the only concept of understanding I have. And I was like, whoa, I don't think so. You didn't say anything about paying you, bro. Like, I thought just the dogs were going to have some fun. Like, you know, shoot, you gave him what he gave her. Like, you're going to get some pups. Like, what do you want from me? No. He says, how much do I got to pay you? I said, oh, whoa, well, I didn't, you know, I was like, well, how much do people usually charge? He says, well, 500, $1,000, you know, 1,500 sometimes, but, you know, you really have a nice stud. And I said, well, how about we meet in the middle? Give me 1,000. I'll take 1,000. He said, all right, that's fair, bro. He's a nice dog. He's like, let me just make sure that she has puppies and she drops, and I'll bring you $1,000. I said, whatever, that works. I really didn't care, because all I cared about is my dog having fun. I was happy for him, gave him a treat, gave him a bone that day, on and on. 4 or 5 months later, brings me a puppy instead of the money. Teaches me how to do the paperwork, because he needed his paperwork for his pups. Taught me a few things. So that day I ended up with a pup instead of the money. I didn't really want another dog. It was a lot of work. But, you know, at that time I was kind of into puppies still. I was like, oh my God, it's so cute. So I kept it. And that's how the thing started. That was the beginning of a new thing that I didn't know was coming. I had no clue. I just thought I owned 2 dogs. That was it. I owned 2 dogs, and that was the end of the conversation. The $1,000, I never got it, so I never thought about a business prospect or anything like that. I got another dog, whatever. Didn't think of selling the pup. No, just kept it. I fast started training it. She was sort of on the aggressive side, and she did not like mailmen. She did not like the handyman that came over to repair things. She did not like the landscapers. So she didn't like anyone knocking on the door. She didn't like the neighbors. She didn't like guys running or jogging down the street or riding the bike. It was really hard, because at the time I lived in the community and they didn't allow a fence. And my one dog was trained to stay within an invisible fence. So I ended up putting a fence against the community rules. And I figured if they say anything, you know, I'll fight it at that point, which I did. But that's what had happened, because I couldn't trust her. If someone left the door open, or if she was outside playing, and, you know, even I'm with her and she sees someone, I'd have to have her on a leash the whole time, and I didn't want that. I wanted her to run free. I had a nice sized property, actually, even though I was in the community. I had almost an acre lot. So I wanted her to be able to run. So winter came one day, and freezing cold. You know, Michigan winters, they're pretty bad. There was snow everywhere. And I had an igloo outside that, you know, I just put it out there for them when they were out playing. But they had a doggy door to come in and out of the house, which was through the actual garage access. And anyone who's known my house, well, actually my first house in Michigan, they would know I had the same concept in the other 2 houses I bought later on, which was just a garage flap to the outside end, and it allowed them an area to run. So, anyhow, one day I come home and the dogs got big. I was like, man, this dog is thick. She's really big. She's much bigger than her dad. I put my hand on her stomach and it felt like a ball. And I was like, man, this dog's got a tumor. Something's wrong with her. So I rushed her into the vet. Dog's pregnant. Now this is the funny part. I was like, no, dog can't be pregnant. I have a fence. No dog can come in. No dog can come out. No dog has been around her. You know, this and this and that. And he says, what about your sire? What about the sire, the male that you have at the house? I was like, yeah, but that's her dad. He ain't gonna sleep with his own daughter. What kind of shit do you think this is? So the vet starts laughing. He's like, that's not how it works in the animal world. I was like, well, you mean he can't smell that it's his daughter? I mean, it's not. He's like, there's no such thing as, you know, as that in the dog world. He's like, it's not, there's no incest in the dog world. You know, it's called a line breeding or inbreeding, depending on the views on it. And he starts to explain to me the whole prospect of that. This is all new to me, guys. I knew nothing. I was dumb. Like, you guys look at me as a knowledgeable person today, but there was a day I knew absolutely nothing. I mean, nothing. Below nothing. So I'm like, okay, this is weird. Like, what do we do? Do we abort the babies? Are they going to come out handicapped? Are they going to, you know? I was concerned. He says, no. They'll be fine. Most likely they'll be fine. You shouldn't have any issues. This is very common. And so he tells me the procedure on what I need to watch out for, check the temperature and all that. That she would, dog delivered naturally back then, guys. So we didn't have to worry about the C-section situation. He said, just keep an eye on her, keep checking her temperature. If you see her going in labor, if she's pushing for more than 2 hours, then you rush her into me, but you should be good, on and on. So that particular vet was a smaller vet than the vet I got later on in Michigan, which was Wilson Veterinary later on. So I had his personal cell phone number for backup, which was really handy because he taught me a lot. His name was Dr. Wilkerson. I don't know if anybody knows him in Michigan. I think he's retired now. He was old then. He would be, God knows how old, 90, maybe now 85. But yeah, that was back then. So one day I come home, guys, and I don't see the dog. So I go outside looking for her, and she comes out barking at me, growling, teeth and all. She launches at me. She literally launches, and she jumps. It was so fast, it just popped her up like that, and she just flew over my back. And she hit the back of the door that was open halfway, and just jumped back on the ground. She ran back in her igloo. She didn't come back at me a second time. So now I'm trying to get to the igloo. I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't get a chance to see that if she had dropped the babies or anything. But I had an idea that most likely there was babies in there, and that's why she did that. So sure enough, there was 9 puppies. 9 puppies. There was 8 black puppies, 1 fawn pup. Surprisingly, no brindles. She was a white and blue dog. Dark blue, like a really, really dark blue, but it was not a black, it was like a grayish color. At the time, we recognized dogs as blue nose, red nose, those kind of things. We didn't have, pockets or XLs or standards no, they were just pit bulls. That was it, right? So that was the time. That's how far back it goes. If you had a dog with a little more mass on it, we called it a bully dog. But I yet knew nothing about this stuff. This came on later on. The information came on later on. So I bring the dog inside, put it by the fireplace. In the snow, guys, these puppies were all alive. Not one dead puppy. Today, that would be a miracle. So brought them in, put them by the fireplace. They all sat down. She nursed the litter, food, whatever, cleaned up. She made a lot of messes. It was a lot of work, but not to the extent of work that it is today, since a lot of my females sometimes don't produce milk. We got a tube feed. We got to wake up every 2 hours. On and on. She didn't sit on any puppies. She didn't eat any puppies. She didn't hurt any puppies. She was a phenomenal mother. I mean, amazing. I mean, these days were very, very different type of dogs. Very, very different. Time comes where the puppies are of age and they're just destroying my house. They're crapping everywhere. So I needed to do something. I couldn't take it no more. So I called the gentleman who gave me the pup, who turned into the mother of these puppies. So he says to me, well, there's a website, and I can't remember the name of it, but I believe it was Heebly or something.com, and you put your pets on there for sale. And that's, I didn't have a website, guys. Didn't have anything, and Muscletone didn't exist yet. So I went on there and I put the puppies up for sale. And I'm looking at the prices, guys. So $500, $250, $50. They were selling puppies for $50. Some were giving them away for free, just free home for a dog, like just come and take it. They just wanted it gone. And I'm like, using my business common sense and what I know about people, I figured if I priced my dogs that way, I was going to be in the same ball game as all these other guys. Even though I don't know what I had. I don't know if the dogs I had were worth anything. I knew nothing. I just thought my puppies looked better than anyone else's puppy. But I figured it's like people's children. They always think their children is great, even if their children is not great. We're not that good looking. They still think their child is good looking. I know people are going to get mad at me now, but it is what it is. Not every child's that cute. But yet, the parents always think he's so cute, right? So I was like, oh, maybe because they're my puppies, I think they're cute. But screw it. You know what? I'm going to wing it. I'm going to put them at $1,500, which was the only puppies on that website at $1,500 at the time. In less than a week, I kept the fawn one, by the way. In less than a week, they were all gone. All gone. Not one left. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is when the Muscletone idea was born. First thing that came to my head is the numbers. Okay, $1,500 a puppy. What did it cost me to make these puppies? How much did I profit? How much time did it take? Okay, 1 litter is not worth it, but if I had 5 litters, 10 litters a year, how many litters can a female have? How many females do I need? How much room do I need? How much food is it going to cost me? How much vet bills is going to cost me, how much this and that, and I start putting everything on paper. And I was like, there's a business there I didn't even know about. And this is at $1,500 a pup. I was already seeing a profit. Now we're talking 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200,000 for a puppy sometimes. And adult dogs up to, a few million. So depending on the dog. So we're in a different world today. But at that particular time, that was still a number that was worth it to me to start a company, to start a business. I'm like, okay, I need to know and learn everything I need to learn about this before I launch myself into it. Because going blindly into something is not always the right way. Even though I did all my research, I still made a lot of mistakes. And I'll tell you about these mistakes on the next episode. Right now we're going to finish the story on that particular year, which was, I believe, now 2000, 2001. And so the fawn dog that I kept, I named Simba. For those who follow me for a long time know, Simba lived all the way to 2019. 19 years. He was actually shy of 19 by a few weeks. So he was about 19 years old when he passed away, and he was put to sleep. He was a very healthy dog, and the reason he was put to sleep is he just wasn't functioning very well. But it was only after he had gotten to a fight with several coyotes outside at an old age, and they did a nice number on him, and he got stitched up, and it was not a good look, and he was suffering. We had to put him down. But else than that, the dog was in incredible health. There's videos you can see on YouTube of him, even at 16, 17 years old, just running, chasing a ball, jumping in a pool, diving, and coming back out. I mean, he was just an amazing dog. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our first dog, Simba, the first production. He had a 26-inch head, which was unheard of back in those days, but he was an XL. He was at least 22, 23 inches tall, but he was 135 pounds. He was no small dog. I mean, he was a monster. Compared to my dogs today, no. He was 10 inches taller than them, 9 inches taller than them, at least 8 inches taller than them. And yes, he was heavier, but he had lankier legs. He didn't have as much bone. Yes, he had 26-inch head, but on a taller body. So it is not comparable. The look, the structure is not comparable to what we have today. He didn't have chest spread the way my dogs have today. He had decent chest spread, but not like they have today. So Simba was the beginning. So I started hitting shows with Simba, guys. I started hitting every show. My first show was in Flint, Michigan, where I met several guys who are very well known in the dog world. Used to be at least, and they burned their way out. And I saw what was wrong with the bully community, or at the time the pit bull community, or the dog community. Their obsession with the dogs was a whole nother level. There was envy, there was jealousy, there was hate. Nobody was really anyone's true friend. They just pretended to be your friend. And I could see it coming a mile away. I grew up in the streets. I'm not stupid. And I said to myself, okay, now I know the type of characters I'm dealing with. So I got that down. So that was note number one. Note number two is I realized that nobody knew what they were talking about. Everyone would tell you a completely different story on what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to breed, what's right and what's wrong. And no one had a clue. So I'm like, okay, which means I got to figure this out on my own. I can't depend on these people. Because if I'm getting 10 different stories, how am I supposed to know which one's right? So I got to do my own research. And that's when my personal research started. Reading stuff on reproduction, chromosomes, how to breed horses, because there's a lot of books on horses, but you don't really find much about dogs. Even some books that I found on dogs later on, in time being that came, I found that those books were full of crap. Whoever wrote them was an idiot, or just pretty much repeated what he was told or made up shit. It wasn't true knowledge as I thought it was, and I gave it too much weight, but I learned that the hard way through experience. And nothing beats experience, guys. Nothing, I'll tell you this right now, in business, nothing beats experience. I don't care how much you learn until you actually apply it yourself over and over and over again. You gotta be observant. You gotta be very, very observant, and you gotta see patterns. And you gotta be able to separate your feelings from reality of what's going on. And you gotta be able to admit you're wrong. And this is one of the biggest people's weaknesses. They don't admit they're wrong. Oh no, this is the way to do it. Oh, his dog messed up. Oh man, he lied to you. No. It's not like that. It's always your mistake because you're the one acting on it. No one's forced you. No one has a gun to your head. You're making the decision. You are choosing to do what you're choosing to do, and you're calculating based on whatever information you have convinced yourself is accurate. So it's always on you. So if you learn to accept that, then you can grow. And that's where I struggled at that particular time, because I didn't know where to get my information from. It was really, really hard. Today, you guys have it much easier because you have so much knowledge is given to you on the internet and over breeders who have, experience, and you actually have dogs that are complete that you can work with. But we started at a time it wasn't the case. Now again, bully world hadn't existed yet. The American bully didn't come for another few years, a couple more years from that. Not the actual American bully registry, at least. The word was being bounced around between breeders in those years, 2000 to 2003, 4. But the actual breed, as a breed, wasn't a thing. It didn't exist. We will get to that in a further episode. So today we're going to finish up about just the first generation of Muscletone. So this was the first generation Muscletone, was Simba. So when people saw the dog at shows, they were very impressed by him. Simba was an impressive looking dog, and I started selling stud off the dog. At that particular time, his stud was $1,000. I won't lie. I did make some breaks for $500 because in my brain I'm like, well, 500 is better than nothing. My dog's, just gonna have sex. He's gonna have fun. I'm gonna get $500. What do I care? So, surprisingly, I sold quite a few studs off Simba in those years. I would say he was studying maybe 20 times a year, which is decent money. Maybe 15 to 20 grand, depending on how much I charged. But he did that for a couple years easy, and that was quite a bit for that era. Especially that we didn't have to go to a vet, didn't have to collect semen, didn't have to chill it, put an extender, and go to FedEx. No, just people come over, boom, done. They have fun, we hang out, we talk dogs, which was fun at the time. We enjoyed the scene. Now this is an era where the bully started, or was about to start. Now I want to mention one thing here before we end this first live today, because I'm going to continue on this live next week, and that's when it's going to start to get really, really interesting. I just wanted to give you guys this first base. When we used to go to shows in those particular days, we used to go to people's yard, and you ask Dave, Lou, Ron Ramos, any of these guys. You ask anyone, Marco, Suarez, any of those guys, Big Kev, those guys were all around, most of them before me, or around the same era as me. When we used to show up at events, we asked for one thing: stack that dog up. And when I said stack that dog up, I'm not talking about a side stack like they do in the ring. It was a front stack. We wanted to see how massive that dog was, how wide his chest was. And we'd stack our dog next to it. We want to see the widest dog. That's where the stack off was born, guys. The stack off was born even back then. Who had the widest chest and who just stacked their dogs up wide? Who had the widest dog? Who had the biggest head? Who had the most bone? That's all they cared about. People forgot about rears. They forgot about top lines, which it wasn't that good. But that was the era. That was the time where these particular exaggerated dogs, like Simba was an exaggerated dog, they weren't welcomed in the UKC. I showed Simba in the UKC twice. He didn't win anything, and I was told, oh, he's too big. He's not gonna live a long time. He's gonna die by 6, 7 years old. He's too big for the breed. It's not good for his heart. He has dysplasia, which, by the way, had excellent hips. I was told everything in the book by UKC judges and by people from the AKC as well that I had met who were showing American Staffordshire Bull Terriers. So none of the stuff they told me turned out to be true. The dog never had dysplasia. He walked, never limped, not even in his old age at 18, 19 years old. Died at 19, but at 18, 17 years old, never limped anything. Never. Ever. Did he get a limp every now and then from an injury? Sure, but in general, from having hip issues, no, never, ever, ever. Phenomenal dog, phenomenal health, and outlived all of their dogs that were grand champions and champion made the standard. That's when I learned, 19 years later is when I learned, actually I would say around 14, 15 years later when I started to realize that they were all full of crap. They're all full of crap. Everything I was told, all this information, knowledge, even sometimes from veterinarians who were telling me the same exact things breeder were saying, that it was just all made up. None of it was accurate. None of it was true. I don't know where the information came from. I still don't know, but none of it was true. And that is a very important thing that I want to mention to people, because when you realize how much BS is being told to you on the daily by people who's never accomplished anything, you can withdraw yourself from that person as a knowledgeable person who's giving you information, because one, they've never done anything to prove themselves, and then two, they're trying to teach someone something they couldn't accomplish on their own. We didn't have these type of people back then. We didn't have anyone who had accomplished anything. It was too early of a time. And everybody was running their mouth not knowing anything. Except for me. I never ran my mouth. I never taught anyone anything. I always kept my mouth shut. Because I didn't know anything. At least not to my own knowledge. Even though I realize now that I knew quite a bit more than everyone else, at that particular time I still felt not knowledgeable enough to give any information out, because I wasn't sure. Because I hadn't put it to work. And that's something that we lack in the bully community. Is too much people teaching and talking, not enough listening. And this live here is going to bring up a lot of the information, and how we all go through this even today, is get false information that puts us back in our breeding program. But it's not the person who gave you the information's fault, it's your fault. It's your fault for listening, it's your fault for taking advice from someone who you didn't see proof from, who's never proven themselves to anyone or to you that they're knowledgeable. And following a hype that may not be so much accurate as well. Especially in that era. So that was the first generation. Muscletone was breeding XLs. That's what we started off with. Every now and then we would get a standard, which is around 19 inches, 18 inches. That was short. I mean, that was short. An 18-inch dog was short for us. But it was very rare, even then. Most dogs were, I would say, 19, 20, 21 inches tall. Even Dave's dogs, when I met Dave, they were around that height. So, of course, it was a different time and different line. So when I end this today, we're letting you guys know that next week we're going to talk about the second generation of Muscletone. So the first generation was with Simba. And Muscletone was born with Simba. As soon as I had done these shows, I opened a name for Muscletone Bullies. And the way I came up with that name, to finish that up too, I was going to tell you guys that, is the most searched thing on the internet at the time, which we had Yahoo. I don't even think Google was really a big thing just yet. Yahoo was the big thing, and MSN boards were a big thing. So the search thing was how to put muscle on my pit bull. So I'm thinking words. What are people going to search? And my website would come up. So the kennel became Muscle Tone Pits, because we always search adding muscle tone to my pit bull. So Muscle Tone Pits. And that's how Muscletone was born. That's how the name was born. And I purchased advertisement on Yahoo, and later on Google, which nobody had, for pit bull finder, or if someone was looking for puppies, to bring me back to the top. And at the time it was affordable because nobody was doing it. I was the first one to do it. I was ahead of the game. So guys, keep in mind, if you're ahead of the game with new technology, you'll grow much faster than anyone else in your era at that time. So that's really important too. So first generation Muscletone was born. Muscletone Pits was born. Muscletone Bullies was not born yet, because the American Bully wasn't yet thing yet. Next week, Monday, we're going to discuss how Muscletone Bully was born, how the American Bully breed was born, how the ABKC was born, what was the first generation, and how we went from XL to pockets. We'll see you guys next week, Monday, 6 p.m., same time, same place.